China, the $19.2 trillion giant, just made a major Bitcoin backflip. But it's not because China is now interested in Bitcoin. It's because the United States is forcing China's hand, and this is all a part of the economic battle that China and the United States are getting into. But first, let's dive into the recent backflip that China just made, where now we have Hong Kong approving its first mainland broker to buy and sell Bitcoin and crypto. So China is bending the knee, and this will unlock billions of dollars. So remember, the Chinese economy is the second largest in the world when it comes to everything. I mean, it's essentially the United States at the top and China. And China's relationship with Hong Kong is the one country, two systems. So essentially, every time Hong Kong makes some sort of move or some sort of play, it's essentially a proxy for China. Hong Kong is going to be doing and making these moves first and testing it out, see how it goes. And then if it goes well, then China is going to be rapidly adopting these things, or they're just going to be potentially doing it as well. The reality is that all Chinese investors get access to Hong Kong markets as well. So this two country or one country, two systems essentially unlocks a ton of money for the Bitcoin market. But I think it's interesting because there's a few different things going on in Hong Kong and China that, have essentially made this backflip happen. Of course, there's this big giant Bitcoin conference occurring here later this summer in August in Hong Kong. But I think what people are missing is that the relationship with the United States here. We had Bo Hines come out and say something very, very interesting. So now let's listen in to what Bo Hines had to say here.
Now the process begins in terms of establishing the reserve, the actual infrastructure behind it, and getting all of that accomplished. There's nothing in the EO that mandates that report become public, but we could choose to make it public at some point. And we are certainly keen on the idea of.
So did you hear that there? There's nothing in the report that essentially says that you need to make this public. So is the United States hinting that they are buying Bitcoin, while not disclosing it to the public? And we also had Donald Trump the other day recently saying things about Bitcoin.
Become amazing. I mean, it's the jobs that it produces. And I notice more and more you're paying Bitcoin. I mean, people are saying it takes a lot of pressure off the dollar, and it's a great thing for our country. So
So Donald Trump saying that, hey, we are buying using Bitcoin more, and we're going to embrace Bitcoin. He's even come out and said on Air Force One that he hopes that the U.S. will continue to dominate China in crypto and whip their tail, so to speak. So I think that all of this combined is the reason why we're looking at China potentially starting to bend that knee. So now let's dive into China's relationship with Bitcoin and with crypto for that matter, because I think it is a very, very interesting one. And it's seen a huge major flip here within this past, 6 months that Donald Trump has now been in office. So China didn't ban Bitcoin again here. This is from June. So media outlets, they reported that China had banned Bitcoin ownership from private individuals. News on that ban spread and led to some investors selling their Bitcoin, yet there was no official statement. And then China banned Bitcoin mining at some point in time. And then we've had a lot of various, back and forth with China when it comes to Bitcoin. I mean, famously, they banned it mining. They literally had a video. I tried to find it. I think they've wiped it off the internet, of cement trucks rolling over Bitcoin miners not too long ago. And they are creating something that is very unique. They're creating their own CBDC here, right? They're essentially going and creating this Chinese digital yuan, right? So if they're looking to create a CBDC, which is a central bank digital currency, this is currently going on in China right now, where every single person has their own social credit score, And if you're out too late, you're watching things that you shouldn't be watching on the internet, or you're gambling, or you're doing something along those lines, China can now limit your money and limit your access to your own money right here, right now. They could do all of that. So I'd be very cautious when you're looking at how China is quote unquote embracing Bitcoin, and always be skeptical on that. But what I am saying is that there's now starting to be a big demand on this. And I think it's a big in part on what we're seeing here. It's an economic war between China and the United States, right? I mean, they want to be the top dog. They want all of these guys to continue to be the number one, right? The difference is the US right now and China, these guys are looking at the top of all of the, economies in the world, and they're saying, hey, we've kept tariffs on China now at 30%. These Chinese tariffs are now at 10%. And they're looking at the top government holdings of Bitcoin around the world. There's been rumors that China has sold off their Bitcoin, but it's according to the Bitcoin treasuries presented by BitBo here. We're seeing the US number one top dog and China not too far behind. But did China secretly sell Bitcoin, or were they planning on selling their Bitcoin? This was back in April of this year. There was rumors circulating that China was so resistant to it that if the United States was buying Bitcoin, they were going to tank the price by after they announced the buys, all of a sudden sell off all of their Bitcoin and go through there. It really never came to fruition, right? Because it holds about 194,000 Bitcoin, but China does not have a clear policy on how it wants to handle it, right? I mean, they haven't really been secretly open. And then we've had, other countries like North Korea, which have sold over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin within the past, since March. So not too long that they're selling over $1 billion worth of Bitcoin now in a short time period, very short time period here. So with all of this, right, we're starting to see a rapid development on how China is now approaching the crypto markets, right? We've gone from completely banning it, wiping it off the face of the earth, to, okay, you know what, maybe we're going to test with Hong Kong, to we're going to create our CBDC, to now, like, they're starting to go in on Bitcoin and potentially, continue to hold their Bitcoin holdings and continue to move it forward. And I've been covering it on a few different channels here that China's economy is not doing exactly well. I mean, they've been reporting that used car sales are actually new cars that they're shipping out. But because their new cars are not selling in mainland China, they're shipping them all over the globe and reporting it as used car sales. That is currently going on. And then on top of that, the Chinese economy is not doing very well because the Chinese consumer is essentially holding everything back and not really spending. They don't have the access to the US, the number one spending economy in the world anymore. And so we're seeing this start to trickle down. And so the United States and China essentially going back and forth with all of these things, it's adding up for the Chinese to need to make some sort of play. And what has this play been? Well, they're going to start to, allow some of their investors to have access to Bitcoin. And that's the big major kicker here. We're starting to see Hong Kong and China now unlocking billions of dollars towards Bitcoin for all of this, right? Because we're seeing the Chinese government, the GDP, all these things are starting to now start to go a little bit down, right? Because China versus the United States has been oh man, now they want me to accept all these cookies. The Chinese versus the United States has essentially been the battle of 2025 and the major story here, where China and the US has a $29.2 trillion US GDP with the growth looking at consumer spending. But China, it's at 18.9 trillion USD, powered by manufacturing and export demand. So if the United States is limiting that export demand, well, look at what's happening. Those tariffs are absolutely killing China. And so they need to continue to be looking at all of this. And then they're looking at, hey, the United States with that. The United States and Bo Hines, they're already looking at Bitcoin as digital gold. They're already looking at Bitcoin and potentially letting the US buy or buying Bitcoin without the US even disclosing any of that, right? So this is all making for something that is very, very interesting, right? We're having a country essentially see that the United States is now fully embracing Bitcoin and now saying, hey, you know what? We're going to have to now at least have some sort of play on that. But I think the true power of Bitcoin is holding Bitcoin in self custody and doing it yourself. So I think that with that, you guys should be always holding in self custody. And that's why I partnered with my friends over at the Bitcoin Well. You can go to bitcoinwell.com/green candle, sign up today. Then when you sign up, you will get 500 wishing well tokens. And then when you buy Bitcoin, you'll get 500 right away as well. So that's 2 chances to win potentially 1 million sats. So make sure you guys are smoking that like and hitting that bell notification on the subscribe button so you guys know when I'm going live. And you will know when I'm giving you guys literally free sats every time you come to a live stream. So boom, what do we got going on here? 405 Satoshis straight to you, dome piece. That could be life-changing money in the future if you guys just hodl on. So make sure you do that. And if you miss this opportunity, you could go to bitcoinwell.com/green candle, sign up here today. And then if you've got 50K smackers, scroll on down a little bit, book a call with a specialist, and you guys can continue to run on Bitcoin and keep buying that Bitcoin, sending it straight to cold storage. And Bitcoin Well is the best place to do that. Now, you need a hardware wallet for that. So you could go to bitbox.swiss/green candle. You could go here today, click buy now, get the Nova. This thing is slick. They just released it and they will, you're not going to regret it. I got my hands on one of those while I was at BTC Prague earlier this week. So make sure to go on down there. You can get your steel plate as well, punch it all in, and then use promo code Green Candle. You will get 5% off. And I think you guys need to do that quickly because we're starting to see nation state FOMO really start to settle in. We're starting to see Donald Trump continue to talk about Bitcoin. We're starting to see nation states essentially come on in to the Bitcoin space and do it very, very quickly. Now, with nation states continuing to buy and continuing to scoop up Bitcoin at an all-time rate, it's something that we're going to see develop more and more over time. Now, when you see all of these big players start to come in, you got to ask yourself, what the hell is going on? And why are all these nation states really starting to look at Bitcoin? Is it a potential of the US dollar, starting to fade? Why are we starting to see all this? But I think it just really makes sense as to why we're seeing this. It's, this economic battle between China and the United States, and it's going to continue to hold on, right? We're going to start to see this really develop over time. And, it's starts off like this, and then it's a now they fight us start to stage. So on that note, on the now they fight us,